So this is the Tronxy X1. It is a 3D printer, and I think it's still the cheapest 3D printer that you can get at like $110 or less. So here's my printer. As you can see, there's some things that I've changed, and I'll get right into that. So these right here and these are belt tensioners. There's the Fooyabit ones. They increase the tension on the belt right here and right here. So that's the first. These are in no particular order. So those are the belt tensioners. Then if we go over here, this right here, that is the Z-axis stabilizer. That, I believe, is one of the most important upgrades you can do. So yes, so there's that upgrade. And then this right here, that's not stock. This is a fan mount with a little blower fan that I got at Gearbus when I ordered the printer. I'm pretty sure that's all. Yeah, belt tensioner, fan, and stabilizers. So again, the most important one is this one, followed by this, the fan, and then the two belt tensioners. So when I first got the printer, I first assembled it, and then I printed the 20mm tower cube Lego piece thing. It looks like a huge Lego piece. So that printed fine. That was the first thing I did, and then I ordered this filament right here, this Solitech filament. This is what I've been using for about, I don't know, a year. I don't print much, so I don't go through it that fast. So there's the blue filament, but before I did that, this fan mount is designed by CNC Kitchen, Stefan from CNC Kitchen. I printed it with like the remaining black filament that I had. Definitely worth it, because I printed some small models to show a proof of concept that I actually had a 3D printer, and they started to melt while they were still on the bed because the nozzle was hot and it was going back over the part that had just been put down. So yeah, I knew that I needed a part fan, so I actually ordered the part fan along with the printer for like a discount. It wasn't much, but definitely glad I did that. So yeah, I printed that, and then I printed the Z-axis stabilizers, and that was very important because this thing would wobble around everywhere, and it's pretty solid right now. So that is definitely the most important upgrade right there. I've heard some people complain about their bed right here being wobbly. Mine was just fine. It's still just fine, even after a year and a half of usage, mild usage, but all the same. So yes, those are the main two upgrades. These belt tensioners right here, that was an experiment. Well, not really an experiment. These belt tensioners right here, that was because the belt was kind of loose, and I didn't really like the setup because people had said that the acrylic was cracking on them, and I didn't want that to happen to me, so I just printed them. It's really easy to tension it now. You don't tension it too much because that puts too much load on the motors. So that leads me to the problems. So the first problem was, of course, the part cooling fan right here. The part cooling fan, there was no part cooling fan actually. So that was the first problem, because the parts, they were not cooling down, and this could lead to the warping or a bunch of other problems. So I got that solved by doing the CNC Kitchen's fan adapter. Highly recommend this one. You can see how it looks down here. Right there, you can see it right there. So yes, that one's a good model. Then this was wobbly, so I printed these out of blue filament right here. Had to kind of take apart this whole Z-axis. It was definitely worth it though. Definitely worth it. Then when I was printing, I noticed some weird shaping, like especially on circular prints, it would make them kind of ovalish. And to see the issue with that, you have to look up above. See, this is a cantilever style printer, or cantilever, whatever you want to call it. So everything has to be perpendicular, or else there's going to be problems. So when I installed these things, they were a little bit warped, and I actually had to use a hairdryer to heat them up, and so I could change them around. And it must have not been even, because these were causing the x-axis to go this way or this way. I forgot which one, but it was causing the prints, when they're supposed to be circular, to be oval. So to fix that, I just put the heat gun back on it, and once they were hot, I just pushed this over, and it corrected itself. Well, it didn't correct itself, but I had to hold it in the perfect 90 degrees, and then once it cooled, it was perfect. So that's the first issue. The second issue is, in short, I didn't know how to level a bed. I feel kind of stupid now, but I didn't know how to level the bed. So what I thought is that you wanted to have the distance between the nozzle and the bed to be as close as possible. But if they're too close, I didn't know what happens if they're too close. So I made them really close, and then the motor here, it was having trouble extruding. It was popping. It was skipping steps. So I was like, oh, it just doesn't have enough current. So I had to open up this and adjust the current for that. And it didn't change. It just made some high squeaking noises, and the motor got really, really hot. So I was like, uh-oh, what have I done? And then I actually contacted somebody on Thingiverse, and he said, your bed is probably not level. So I lowered the bed so the nozzle would have a greater distance. So the filament actually came out. But I left the stepper motors at their high current. So I had to go back with a multimeter right here. With the multimeter right here and check the current, so it was a perfect 0.5. So you got to do that. So that was the second issue. But I mean, honestly, the current was fine out of the box. I just messed with it and didn't need to be messed with. I really only had to lower the bed. So that's the second issue. Third issue, I mean, it's the belts. Really, you don't need the belt tensioners because the belts are actually pretty nice. They're actually reinforced, I think. So as long as you get them good on the installation, you probably won't need them. But the mount for them was just kind of sketchy. Like it looked like it could have cracked. So yeah, let's look at some other prints. This is a Benchy. As you can see, it's pretty good quality. So the holes right here are really good. They don't have much overhanging issue. The door right here, it has some artifact, but that's fine. Hello, Charlie. Let's go to Chuck Vids. You can see his videos. We'll cut that out. Alright, so back to the Benchy. It's pretty good quality. You can't really see too well because this camera's not that good. But the biggest thing are the artifacts. So as you can see, there's the lines right there, and it's kind of hard to pick up, but there are more artifacts, like right there, you can kind of see it. There's some bad salmon skin. So the only really way, that is probably the printer main board's fault. If I swap that out, then that probably would be fixed, but that's just too much hassle to go for. So this is a little mount for something, for a school project. I actually needed to hold this puzzle cube, Wild Rose Builds. Yeah, so I needed to hold this to the wall. So I just designed this in Tinkercad real quick, pretty easy. This is the puzzle cube that I actually needed to work for. It's pretty cool, very easy print, and it'll let no problem. That's the other issue, the Z-axis. It's not perfect, so you have some Z banding right there. I lubricated the rod a little bit right here with some WD-40 Specialist, and that helped with squeaking noise. I haven't really noticed a big difference in the actual print quality. So yeah, these are the easy print sort of thing. This is the Millennium Falcon. This is the model that I'm pretty happy about. I printed it in 3 pieces. The 3-piece version came in this piece right here, the main section, which is like this big, and then this tiny little end section. The main section is printed at 5% infill for Charlie. It was printed at 5% infill, and I want to say like 45 meters per second, whatever, millimeters per second, and turned out pretty good. I mean, this is all printed upright in their individual sections, so you can see on the underhangs right there, the quality's not great, and on the guns, the quality's not too good either, but it is what it is. It's a $100 printer. What do you expect, you know? Bottom hand's not too bad, actually. It's pretty good. So, this is the little cockpit. There's a little bit of stringing. It's hard to notice, though. So, yeah. I just glued this up with some JB Weld. Totally overkill, but that was all I had. There's a lot of stringing over here. So that is an issue. Probably could be solved with more retraction settings and another fan, or a more powerful fan, or a different fan. It's just too much trouble to go to. This is a pretty detailed print. It'll all clean up really easily though. I'm planning on getting some primer filler, stuff that Peter Sriepel uses. It's pretty good. Yeah, so the detail here, that's actually pretty good. You can see all the way through. It's pretty good. What else? There's a FlexiRex. That's the other thing. This printer does not have a heated bed. However, it has a very good alternative. Well, not really an alternative. It has a very good... It has this instead, which is a flexible build plate that's removable. This is the best feature of this printer. If there's a part that's stuck on there, I just pop it off and then flex it, and then it comes off. It's the best thing. Yes. So this is the FlexiRex. It was a little stiff, but once you play with it a little bit, it loosens up. That's what she said. So I actually mistakenly printed this with a huge amount of infill because there was something else that I was doing beforehand that required it. So you can see it warped a little bit. On the side that's really smooth, because that's the bed, it warped right there. And that's the biggest place that it warped, like just right there. And this happens when you have a lot of filament on the bed, and there was a lot of filament in this little area because it was a high density. I also printed this, which is a USB SD micro SD card holder, and I printed this with a huge amount of infill too. So one, it's heavy, it's very heavy, and there was actually a layer, skipped layer at the very end of it, so that's good. It didn't happen before. So it's really heavy. There's a lot of Z banding on it, and it's probably my worst print. And as you can see, it warped, like right there. It might be hard to see on camera, but it definitely warped right at the end, like right there. What?
Is your boat?
No, this is like the card holder thing.
Oh, that's the trash one.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was kind of a fail, but I can still use it, so it's not really a fail. Okay, and then I also printed a bunch of these fidget spinner gimmicks. They kind of also warped a little bit too. There's a lot of failed prints, but this is the most recent one, and this turned out great. So, $110 printer, you can't go wrong, really. So, how do I print something? So, basically, what I normally do is, I don't do this too often, but just because I was playing around with it a lot, I'm going to level the bed. So, what you do is you get the bed, you use your little binder clips, and secure the bed down like this, and then you plug the printer in. So I'm just gonna plug it in. Can you close the door, please? So, as you can see, it turned on. I'm gonna get you in closer here. So this is just the printer ready thing. So now I want to level the bed. So I'm gonna go here and click the center button, which brings up the menu. The buttons are kind of chintzy. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I'm gonna go to quick settings. I'm gonna click home all. As you can see, the printer is homing. So this means it just goes to the origin, really, which is the closest to the motor here, the closest to the motor here, and the closest to the motor on the z-axis. So that's cool. Now from here, this is where the print starts. So here I can start homing. So there's a little bit of filament right there, so I'm just gonna wipe that off because it's not hot. Alright, and now right here. Now, in order to move this around, I'm gonna go back here. It's very hard to see, I'm sorry. But I'm gonna scroll down, or actually I'm gonna go back to quick settings, and I'm gonna go down to disable steppers. And this will allow me to move the bed around freely. Alright, so now I'm gonna pull the bed closer here, and as you can see, well, you probably can't see this camera's bad. Support the channel, get me a new camera. Alright, so there's a tiny little gap right there. That should be fine. Now if we pull it over here, that tiny little gap stays like that. Alright, so now we're going to move it over here. That tiny little gap, it's staying the tiny little gap that it is. Now we're going to pull it over here. The tiny little gap is still there. So it's still level. You don't have to level this much. I mean, I barely level it. I've only leveled it like maybe, I don't know, 7 times in my entire ownership of it. So it's really not that, you don't have to do it that much. That's something that everybody says, oh, you gotta level it. I haven't had to level it that much. Alright, so now that the bed is level, we know that's the level. We're going to, oh, actually let me show you if it isn't level. If it isn't level, if this gap is too big, then you get this nut and you loosen it, which relieves tension on this thing, on the spring, which allows the bed to move up. However, here's a problem. If you have this little limit switch set too high, that means the hot end will always stay above the bed a little bit too much. And if this happens, that means you have to get these springs really loosened to get the bed high up there. And if that happens, the bed is going to be super jiggly because the springs are going to be not tight and there's not going to be tension holding it in place. So if it is super jiggly, then you undo this screw right here and you move this sensor down and you rehome it, and then you'll have to tighten these springs with these little wing nuts. Very easy, pretty basic. Okay, so now that we know that the printer is level, and so yes, now that we know it's level, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this button and we're going to click Print File. Alright? And as you can see, I have my various models here. It's going to be hard to see, I'm sorry. Let's print a V-Buck. Alright? So, as you can see, that little circle, that shows what it's selected on. You gotta make sure that that circle is on your model, because if it isn't, you might accidentally print another model, and that will not be fun for you. So, we're going to tap this button, and it's going to start the print. But before it starts the print, it has to heat up to the set temperature in your slicer. Alright, so the set temperature is 198 degrees Celsius. It's probably a little too high, but it works great for me. Alright, so it's going there. The fan's going to slow down a little bit, this fan right here. Yeah, so it's going to reach that temperature. And then we're actually going to move this a little bit out here. And then I'll show you when it reaches that temperature what we're going to do. Okay, so it's getting close to the set temperature. It's at 170. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my glue stick, because you need good bed adhesion, or else it's not going to be able to stick to the bed, and that'll be bad. So just going to get your glue, a very thin layer right there. After every, I don't know, 7 or so prints, you got to take off the bed completely, and you got to rinse it off under warm water, and this will take all the residue off, because sometimes that glue just builds up there. Okay, so now it says 195. Once it gets within 1 degree of the temperature, so if it gets to 197.1, which it probably will, that's probably what it's going to hit. Oh, quickly, I'm going to manually push this extruder to push filament down through it. Alright, so I just got the filament off right there. I pull on this, it disengages the gear, and I can push the filament freely through it. So, alright, so basically back to what I was doing. I was doing called priming the extruder. So this pushes the filament out of the extruder, and I normally have tweezers ready just to grab that, but it was lying on the bed, so I just plucked it out, and it's fine. So yeah, I normally use tweezers to grab that out, and then the reason why we do that is because if there isn't filament in the extruder ready to go, when the motor starts pushing the filament through and it starts moving around on the bed, if it doesn't have the filament already primed and already there, you're going to miss a layer, and that could be bad because it could prevent the first layer from going smoothly. So the first layer is always the most important usually, and now it's going as the layer is pretty smooth. This printer is pretty darn good for $110. I'm going to say that like 5 times. If you want individual videos on these upgrades and stuff, then I can do those. You just gotta comment. So this fan is this cooling fan right here. It's racking up. The bearings are kind of bad. So, yep. So that's now starting to cool the layer. This blower fan. Yeah. There's not much to it. It's like watching paint dry. So you just gotta stand back and let it do its thing, and I'll be back when it's done. Okay, so once your print is finished, you're going to unplug the printer. It'll say steppers disabled on the screen. We're just going to unplug the printer. And you're going to pull the bed up, undo your little binder clips, Very simple. And here's the V-Buck. And all this liquid, that's just WD-40 that I sprayed at the fan to try to get it from stop buzzing. Because after the 23-hour prints, the fan right here had enough of it, and it was starting to, bearings were starting to make noise. So I sprayed it with WD-40. This stuff right here. Probably not the best thing to do, but hey, the print finished. Alright, so now that we have the print, I'm just going to flex it up like this. Just like that, and it pops off. And as you can see, the V-Buck turned out pretty good. The detail is pretty good. There's a little bit of Z-banding right there. But you know what? That is a very nice print.